sylphs. Sylphs all over them.
Hey, Captain, where you get that shirt?
Oh, I had to kill a Fed to get it.
What am I looking at?
Well, this is what the normal fish finder screen looks like before they jam it. Now, when we get out past that point, they're probably going to jam it. It'll be all blank. It won't even show depths or anything. No, nothing. Okay, photograph of a Polaris missile coming up out of this lake, Lake Pend Oreille, probably about 20 years ago, probably in the 1980s. And we're parked at a spot in the lake where we can get the same angle view of that cliff over there and the power line. And you can see that the trees have grown up quite a bit since this photo was taken. So
Okay.
it was done before digital Photoshop.
And it's over there where I see a lot of white and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a boat right in the way, huh?
And notice the power line going up to the left.
Right?
It's easier to see in the photo because the trees are shorter.
Huh.
Let me hold this in your...
And now there are houses over there. Before there weren't. There are people living over there now.
Okay, well, talk a minute about what's going on with the underground bases and submarines and all that stuff with this lake.
Oh, well, in this lake, Stevo and I gifted it with 200 tower busters with this boat in November 2006. It's almost 2 years ago. And it was a flat, calm day in the afternoon. No other boats were out except for the Navy's boats. They were engineers' boats. They were aluminum. And they were trailing sonar. Apparently they knew we were coming. They were going to track where we dropped all these tower busters. And we were down there about where you see those cliffs over there. Offshore, maybe a quarter mile. And in this flat lake, a big wave surfaced right next to the boat, about 20 yards away, and tracked us. And we were going 25 miles an hour. And this was a perfectly round wave, like the top of a conning tower of a submarine would push up. And so we whipped over there really quick, got right on top of it, and the wave quickly flattened out because it dove. And you could hear and feel the engines of that submarine just vibrating the boat. And it was pretty amazing. There are a lot of tales about people seeing submarines surface in this lake, but never in the media. The media wouldn't touch it. So they started a bunch of sea monster stories, the Navy did, back in the 40s, to cover up what people were seeing, apparently. And like Ogopogo, but that didn't really catch on. People aren't that stupid. Okay, these are the earth pipes. Carol figures we need 13 more earth pipes to neutralize this underwater base, which is, the bottom of the lake is 1,300 feet. It's the deepest lake around. So these came out of my crashed airplane. These were the wing spars. I thought it would be appropriate to use my crashed airplane to undo their nasty underground base. So what we do, I cut this spar up. I put cast earth pipe plugs in there with a simple coil and crystal, and I added fins. And I don't know if you can catch this, but it goes down straight and it sticks in the muck on the bottom of the lake. See?
Right.
So I'm going to drop one here where the missile came out of the lake. Oh, don't float. Okay, no, it's going down.
It's going. It just had to turn around. Yeah, it's
That's
going
going.
straight.
Oh, God.
It went perfect. Gave your heart a little start.
That's okay. I planned it right, yeah.
That looked good.
That was very good.
That was very nice.
And it went fast.
Yeah.
The thinner ones went just like a missile, right? Drop them in and they went boom, right down straight.
Probably
Let's-
halfway
it was-
into the
Check
It
out what
was
happens
pretty
in
cool.
the sky also as we do this, along this 25-mile stretch here. 20-mile stretch. And let's track what happens in the sky, because last time we gifted here, we put an 18
Look at all the sylphs.
in the lake. In the lake over there, the sky was perfectly clear blue. This massive sylph formation showed up right over where we put the 18.
They were showing us where to put them.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. Irina was with us too, and she's a pajama person. She was going, "Oh my God!" It was pretty neat.
Gave her a little nudge, eh? To
Yeah.
wake her up.
Well, she's been being nudged just about every day.
The rocks are nudging her nonstop.
They're not blocking the sonar now. This shows a bottom at 900 feet, and this shows the fish. So they're not blocking the sonar this time. It's the
Well,
first
we're
time.
not around the corner though yet.
Oh, we're not out of the bay yet, right. Can I tell you about this? This is the only legitimate sonar facility here. What they do is they drag buoys down to the bottom of the lake and release them, and then they station their sonar equipment around to track it. And it's very quiet, as you can imagine, no motor sounds, no bubbles or anything. So, and they have those aluminum boats that we're trying to find our tower busters. Their job is to go around the lake and determine where this buoy is going. They can control it remotely so it can surface anywhere. And part of the Navy's scam with publishing that missile photo, or letting it be published, is that they can say, well, this is just our buoy that when it comes out of the water, it actually leaves the water, and it's like 60 feet long or 90 feet.
Wow.
And I don't doubt that's true, but that's a Polaris missile.
Hey Cal, how come the water doesn't come swishing in like it used to? Did there's a plug that wasn't closed before?
No, we fixed. He deflated that side where.
Come over here and pour in the water. Turn upside down.
Okay. Oh, okay, here you do it, honey. Hand model.
And a gorgeous hand model she is.
Absolutely.
Ready? Watch, see?
And there it goes. Turns right over. Oh my God, I'm getting it all the way down.
The sylphs told her to drop one right here. The sylphs right over us told her to drop one right here.
This one's gonna go fast. Look at it.
And there it goes.
Flowing like this, thinking there's going to be any minute.
Yeah, it's just gonna squirt right out there.
Right.
You just said that was the water scene.
Yeah.
Now I got it.
That rainbow sylph up there is very excited with what we're working on today, and the colors are a good proof that he is just gushing with emotion. She. Rainbow sylphs are always a nice confirmation. Sylphs are a good confirmation. Rainbow sylphs are like a double whammy.
In one of the Navy's boats. The Navy has about a dozen of those boats in a shed over in the town of Bayview, close to where we started out. They usually trail a couple of lines of sonar, probably very deep in the water. They act like they're fishing, but they're all middle-aged civil service guys, PhDs, sonar specialists and whatnot. And when Stevo and I were here a couple of years ago, I think these guys, they don't look like they're fishing because they're so grumpy. And they're giving us dirty looks. And I figured out later, well, they were trying to find out where we were dropping these tower busters. And that was their job. And they didn't like being out there in a cold day. So, but these were feds spying on us in that aluminum boat. What agency were they, honey?
I don't know.
Well, probably Fatherland Security, CIA, FBI, Massoudamites, all the regular geeks. Anyway, but I'm betting that woman was a psychic. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. They usually put after that thing happened to Ryan,
Oh.
I always do it gradually now.
Did you throw it?
Oh, okay. No, he was sitting in the back and a wave came over him.
He just soaked all his clothes.
Tsunami.
It was pretty
Okay,
funny.
you ready? You're going to edit this anyway.
You gonna make more work for this guy?
He's going to shoot 5 hours of video. when I stopped the boat, they quit jamming the sonar. See?
It's
This is the
jammed
point where I
right away.
stopped it right here. I don't turn the motor on. You can see if it starts up with just the motor.
Yeah. No.
This is my shy wife, Carol. We're standing here on our front porch. If you look over that way, if this was 25 years ago, you would have seen that missile come up out of the lake. And it's overcast today, but there's some beautiful mountains over there, and they surround the lake, and that's where we were the other day. Lake Pend Oreille was the site of the third largest Navy training center in World War II. It was built right before the war started. And this place was incredibly remote then. There weren't even any roads up here. It was all reached by railroad. And this airstrip apparently was built for the base. We're on the eastern edge of that, where it was. And it was a basic training center, boot camp. But right after the war started, a whole bunch of Germans showed up there. Presumably prisoners of war, but they were submariners. And nobody really knows what they did there. But many people have a sense that it was connected to a big hole in the bottom of the lake where submarines now come up and from the Pacific Ocean. Apparently there's a tunnel system pretty deep underground, and several lakes have had submarines surfacing in them, including this one, Lake Coeur d'Alene, Pyramid Lake in Nevada. There's another lake in Nevada which has another Navy base. And it's also a deep lake. And the Navy always denied that there were any prisoners of war there. Denied it. Until a few years ago, a park ranger, the Navy base is now a state park. It's called Farragut State Park, named after Admiral Farragut. I think Civil War admiral. And a park ranger was walking along and he fell through an old floor. They removed all the buildings, but apparently in the basement of one building were a bunch of records of the German prisoners. And he stumbled on those, and somehow it made it into the press. I mentioned stories about monsters in this lake monsters like Loch Ness and Ogopogo. The Navy apparently started those after they set up their sonar operations. I think this is back in the 1960s or so. And apparently they wanted to cover up their activities. This was a very sparsely populated area, so this lake didn't have a lot of boats on it until fairly recently. And so when people started seeing this bizarre stuff in the lake, the Navy had these rumors out there circulating, and they could point to those rumors, telling people they were crazy. It's kind of like how the Air Force and the CIA have tried to persuade everybody that UFOs aren't real since 1947. All right, this is a rowing scull that I built a year and a half ago. It's a really fast, nice boat. Built from a kit I bought in Bellingham, Washington. It's got these oars on it. Real lightweight and very efficient. It's a lot of fun. This is the airplane I crashed in May 19th this year. I built this from a kit at the factory in Nampa, Idaho last year. And I had about 20 hours on it before I crashed it. I just flown down to Mica Peak, and I disabled 1, 2, 3, 4 mountaintop arrays in that one flight on the west side of the valley and across the Spokane River to the mountains over there. And I was running out of gas, which I knew I would, so I picked a big field to land in, and I glided down from the top of the mountain in this huge field, made a very nice landing. filled the fuel tank, and started to take off, but there was a downdraft from a ridge that was upwind that was constantly sending the air back down to the ground in what they call a rotor. And I didn't have enough experience to understand that, so I wasn't getting any lift. So I was flying into the wind, but as the wind was coming down, I wasn't getting off the ground very high. I was about 20, 30 feet up. So I banked to the left to try to get a more favorable wind, and immediately lost control. And so I was going about 40 miles an hour. I cut the power really quick, and the plane just went right down in the ground. You can see it hit the nose and the landing gear, broke it up, bent the wing, and I walked away unharmed, thankfully. This is wing I tore up last week to make the earth pipes for Lake Pend Oreille. There was something a little funny about the crash that didn't seem entirely natural. The wind wasn't very strong that day. It was maybe 10 miles an hour. And that's why it felt safe for me to take off. And when the psychics looked at it later on, they said there was a wall of energy around the aircraft. It was like a barrier. And when I lost control of the plane, I looked, and I was going plenty fast enough to be able to bank it or go up or down, and nothing happened when I moved the controls. And if I hadn't cut the power, I probably would have hurt myself. I should say, too, that for 2 or 3 weeks before the crash, Carol kept seeing these little dark entities flitting around the property. And I even saw one in the hangar a couple of days before the crash. And I rarely see stuff like that, but this one, about the size of a big dog, and it was just scurrying out of the way into the dark part of the hangar, out of my path. I didn't think a whole lot about it, but after the crash, we didn't see those anymore. So when the psychics looked at it, they said they were Chinese military psychics, kind of like skinwalkers, Navajo tradition. And the Chinese military are tied in with the triads. That's some very ancient magic. So the Chinese and the African magic is really old, and well, I think it's a lot more powerful than the European magic is. And these guys are adept at manipulating the elements just a bit. Not in a big dramatic way, but they can tweak it. And so I think that's what happened in my case. But if I had the experience and better judgment with flying, I wouldn't have put myself in that situation. I would have picked an airfield to land at. So they were able to exploit that, if they were exploiting it. I believe they were, but I can't prove it. Film the zapper making process a little bit. She said, you really ought to clean up in there, but I was going to do that, but if I did that, you'd think I was a very tidy person. I'm actually not. But we do keep the house very tidy. And these are the circuits I get from Mark Strong in Philadelphia. You want a close-up?
Yeah.
I get it made up in boards like this. He sells me a couple thousand at a time, and I solder the battery clip on there for the 9-volt battery. And these are the boxes. I've attached the copper discs. I used to use pennies for the political statement, and I had the English penny, head penny, for the positive electrode, and had an image of Queen Elizabeth on there, and I thought, well, she never worked a day in her life. Why can't she do something useful instead of being a parasite? So that worked for a while, but I gradually figured out that a smooth electrode is a little more efficient. I made it a little bit larger too. And I put a garnet in the positive electrode line and an amethyst in the negative ground electrode line. The amethyst relates to this part of the energy field. The garnet relates to the lower part. And this gives you a full spectrum effect. Then I put an orgonite plug in here like that. The electricity, the wire goes under the plug and then out to a Mobius coil. This is a Mobius coil. That's how I make them on a rack and make them round. That goes in the circuit down here by the ground electrode. So the energy comes from the battery. It goes through the circuit to make it pulse at approximately 15 cycles a second. And energy, when it goes past the subtle energy components, the electric current picks up their qualities, which is a nice thing to do, create a little synergy. And there's a magnet that goes in the bottom. You know, one of these magnets here, they're rare earth magnets. And when it's all done, this is how it looks. See, there's the magnet with a Mobius coil around it.
Right.
Amethyst, garnet. The wire goes under this orgonite block. And this is very important. There's a wire. See that red wire there? That surrounds everything, but especially the Mobius coil. If you don't put a containment wire around a Mobius coil, it can, the Mobius coil can make you feel kind of sick. At this size and at this amount of current, it's not going to harm you, but Carol and I think that the death towers have huge Mobius coils in them, powered by nuclear generated electricity, you know, thousands of volts. And the reason you need to put them so close together is because the field effect from these death transmitters is kind of short. And so they put them in neighborhoods and tell people that they're for cell phones. But people are figuring out that these are not for cell phones. They're military installations with fortified bunkers housing alternate generators. But the power comes up from underground, obviously. There's a guy, one of the gifters in New Jersey, works in a place that supplies power boxes to the death tower installations, and they only handle 220 volts like a house. Now, if you look at the fat cables that go up all these masts, they're obviously handling thousands or even perhaps millions of volts. It's not a house current situation. And the power has to come from somewhere. You never hear the generators running. So yeah, it comes from underground. And if you hunt around where you live, you can find these rectangular ponds lined by gravel. And sometimes they're called sewage treatment ponds or water settling ponds, but they're obviously not that. If you look at a settling pond or a sewage treatment pond, they're huge, they stink, and they have slime in them. These are always very, very clean. And one pond is filled while the other one's empty. And if you go back again, the other one will be full and the first one will be empty. That's because they have to cool nuclear generators, or in addition to cooling, they bring the dead orgone up to the surface to dissipate in the air. If they try to cool it underground, they're going to poison themselves. You know, nearly everybody who works in nuclear power plants gets cancer. And that's because of the deadly orgone radiation. It's not because of electromagnetic radiation. So they know that. Well, apparently these nukes they use to power the towers are the same kind that they use in submarines. They're very small, very efficient. But they generate a lot of deadly orgone. So, in this orgonite block here, we put gemstones. We put a proprietary combination of gemstones, and you know, people copy us, so I don't talk about what's in there. And same with Carol. She doesn't talk about the stones she puts in her products because a lot of people are making a living selling this stuff, and we would like to keep a little bit of an edge, competitive edge. So a lot of people ask about using house current converters to power their zappers, like when they're sleeping, and I did that years and years ago, and I'd wake up in the morning feeling kind of crummy, and somebody explained to me that that's because the 60 hertz frequency of house current, 50 to 60 hertz, is debilitating. And that transfers right through to the zapper, right into your body. And that's why people that sell zappers that plug into the wall, they get a lot of complaints by people who say they get sick from it. And I know they don't really get sick, they just feel like they're sick. But they're probably actually getting well. But if you want to wear a zapper around the clock, the only way to do it is to put a battery in it and stick it on your body. And that's the way to get the most out of any zapper. Our zapper generates a field effect because of the Mobius coil and the magnet and the orgonite block. And so in addition to killing all of the pathogenic organisms and neutralizing poisons in the body, you get the localized benefit of this field effect, which is very, very strong healing orgone. So if you have, if somebody has a lot of intestinal parasites, they can kill them a lot quicker wearing the zapper on their abdomen than if they wear it on their shoulder or in their sock. And that gets the job done, but you can get it all done no matter how many worms you've got in your guts. They'll kill them all within about 5 days. A lot of people have worms, lots and lots of people, especially kids. Rechargeable batteries. The old rechargeables are not very good. They're good for about 10 hours of zapping. Then the voltage drops so low that you really need to recharge every day. There's a new form of battery called lithium polymer that's rechargeable and carries the voltage about as long as an alkaline battery, which is about 2 weeks of constant zapping for an alkaline battery. Carol and I met in 1997. I was living in my broken down 1981 Honda Civic, and I was visiting my brother Jim in Santa, Idaho.
Yeah, it helps.
Oh, this is Carol's daughter Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Yeah? I got interested in subtle energy effects through my second wife, X2, I'll call her, who is very adept at formulating flower essences, and she had a very good rapport with elementals, and I had some interesting experiences with that, thanks to her. Later on, I met James Hughes in Ashland, Oregon, and he instructed me and taught me a lot of stuff and did a treatment on me that opened up a lot of my capability. I'm not a psychic. I'm not very energy sensitive, but everybody has intuitive capabilities, and this relates to discernment. And I found it was a lot easier to sift through all the bullcrap out there in the metaphysical community after I spent some time with James. And it was after that Carol and I got together, not long after that. Orgone is what Wilhelm Reich calls subtle energy. Just about everybody else calls it something else. The Chinese call it qi, Japanese call it ki, some people call it life force, the Indians call it prana. But it's all the same energy. It's the matrix of the universe from which matter and energy are created. And we can manipulate this. Dr. Reich was the first scientist to do it in a quantitative way, and he is the pioneer in this field. And so we dedicate our work to him. We try to follow his example in terms of intellectual integrity, focusing on the work and not the ideologies. And that's really helped us in this network, a lot of us in this network. It's an informal network. It's not organized. In fact, most of the people who talk about this stuff on the web are not people that we care to associate with. Bradley was an enormous help to this movement in the first couple of years. I spent a lot of time with him. Carol and I did. He developed the film Cloudbusters, Chemtrails, Clouds of Death. Don Bradley doesn't like his name mentioned much, but he's the DB we talk about all the time. And he's got good reasons for that, and so I'm not going to go into that too much. But he he was such an enormous help. He's the guy that mostly got rid of the smog in LA. Most of that was done by him, by himself, with tens of thousands of tower busters and thousands of miles of driving over a period of about 3 years. Part of the disinformation that's out there directs people's attention to the crystal element in the orgonite. They want people to assume that the crystals are doing the work. But in fact, this can all be done without any crystals at all. It's just that adding crystals enables us to do it with less orgonite. The proper use of specialized crystals, gems, coils, metals is in the personal devices. And there are a lot of really good vendors out there who are making very fine products for personal use, just to keep in your home. And these interact with you. So any qualities that a crystal has or a gem has is magnified by orgonite. And when you combine them in an intelligent way, they create a synergy that's much more powerful than the sum of the parts. This is something my wife started. Carol started this, but a lot of very gifted people have gotten into it, and I hope there's going to be more dialogue about that, intelligent discussion about that, and sharing. Most people, myself included, will probably never be interested in doing much of this because we're not energy sensitive or psychic. So I'm content. When I want to do something special, I just ask Carol what to stick in there, and I do what she says. All right, 6 years ago, in July 2002, we started having our regular, we call them chat blast sessions. And it started out very informally. It was just DB and Carol and I. And in July 3rd, 2002, a gifter near Chicago was in meditation, and he got an image of a nuclear bomb blowing up on the waterfront during the fireworks, July 4th fireworks. And he had this a couple of days before. He contacted me, I contacted Bradley, and we got together, and Carol and Don went out of body and started hunting around. They found a nuclear device about to be triggered by the CIA, and they neutralized it. So it didn't go off. And that was the first time. And after that, just about every week, psychics have gone hunting for more mass murder plots by the world order. And of course, the United States is the primary terrorist organization. They're the ones that commit most of the mayhem in the world. And they blame the Muslims or whoever. Whenever a person decides to do some good in this world, he's going to have some opposition. And in our case, we're opposed by every sewer rat agency on the planet, no matter where we travel. When we were in Florida, I got a Ken doll and I did him up like this because that was the worst trouble we had ever had with feds. The FBI killed my dog, and they were just all over us. They even sent a SWAT team one time. We just got sick of it. So we also got this thing. We also got this. And I keep it by the bed. And they know that. It's unloaded. I don't even like to shoot the thing. They don't know that. They don't believe me when I say that. So, but it stops them from coming into our bedroom at night. And I'm facing the front door. This is the first thing they see when they come in. So I know it puts them off balance a little bit. You can't stop them from coming in your house because they can unlock any door. And they can even materialize. They have that technology. And I was thinking of putting flypaper around when it got really bad one time during one period. They kept showing up in the hallway, but I didn't do it. Speaking of opposition, the most horrific thing we've had to deal with has been infiltration and sabotage. And 5 years ago, I opted to make a forum that was by invitation only, because all of my time before that in these open membership forums was taken up with countering the attacks of slanderers who would, distract everybody from the work, and the only way to get rid of that problem is to only allow people into a forum who are focused on the work. And if you look at ethericwarriors.com, you can see that most people don't believe the way I do. And why should they? But we all have in common something that's more important, and that's the healing effects of orgonite and how we can develop more ways to generate these effects. So the people that detract from us are the ones that I haven't invited. And they set up entire websites to slander some of us, especially me. And I think they go after me because I do most of the talking, that's all.
I love Don Croft's zapper, the Terminator 2 zapper. I cannot believe how much business I've created for you. and what I love about these two is they're so humble and they're so beautiful, right? They really, these are Americans, folks, right? This is what's really at the heart of America, makes America great. I'm sure you're tinkering in that garage all the time. Is this true?
I don't see him from the time he gets up until he comes back at dinner time, when his stomach starts to rumble.
That's American ingenuity, isn't it? So maybe you could tell us, how did you get into zappers, Don? What was the first thing?
1995, I was sickened by a chemtrail in San Bernardino, experimental chemtrail. And I knew what it was because I listened to our bell. Can you hear? Oh. So I didn't know if I'd be effective. Next day I started coughing, and I stayed sick until April when I got my first zapper. I bought a zapper for $125. It was like Hulda Clark's zapper. And I got well in a day from the coughing and the lack of energy, but my depression went away, and I felt like a huge balloon lifting up, you know, and first time in my life. So I couldn't wait to find more sick people to try it on. And after about 60 desperately ill people got well in a very short time, I knew that the claims had some value, so I started making them and selling them. And that's how I started. Then I started improving it. I started, after about a year of making them just like Hulda Clark did, I realized it was too cumbersome, and I realized these electrodes can probably be closer together, so I started putting in my sock, everything in my sock, and people had tried it, and they got well just as quick. So I experimented. I put some on the box, like this, and I found a dozen people around Seattle who had sinus infections. And every single one of them who tried it got their sinuses cleared up in 20 minutes from wearing a zapper on their ankle. So I knew that it didn't really matter where you put the thing on your body. I gotta say, the body is full of electrolytes: cerebrospinal fluid, blood, mucosa, lymphatic fluid, everything, urine, feces. It all conducts electricity. So you can kill the parasites in your brain by zapping on the sole of your foot in 20 minutes. And the first time I zapped an hour, and it killed all the parasites in my brain, which is probably what caused my depression. And I've seen a lot of people throw away their brain drugs after they start zapping. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I want to turn this over because I've been using zappers for years. There's probably a few of you here who's been doing that too, or you're brand new. Is there any questions that anybody has about these zapper devices? Let's go here and then we'll come back to Mr. Quaid over here.
I'd like to give these as gifts. I just bought one. I think it's wonderful after one night. I want to know if we should be concerned about any precautions, such as if they have sports injuries with plates or nails in their knees or their neck or something like that.
That's a great question. Thanks a lot. It's absolutely impossible to do any harm to anybody with any battery-powered zapper, no matter who makes it. Absolutely impossible. You can use it on pregnant women, guys with pacemakers, newborn infants. It's all good. Never hurts anybody.
Your dog or cat?
Your dog or cat? Yeah, we worked on 2 dogs here this weekend. Your cat will probably go lie down on it if he's not feeling good. And it'll zap a cat through the fur. A dog has to be zapped on the skin. A horse can apparently be zapped through the fur. Some animals. It depends on the nature of the fur. So.
Okay. Just a Tom.
Yeah.
Could you say a little about the voltages, the technology, proof that it works, and what does it do to these viruses? I mean, I'm trying to get
Oh, yeah, sure.
what's it
Very good. Now this is all hard science. There is no guesswork with this, and it's a very simple process. I have a picture on my website, worldwithoutparasites.com, and our website, and it shows some dead worms. These worms came out of the colon of my ex-wife, who used a zapper for the first time during a colonic. She killed a whole bunch of worms. She kept a few and took a picture. She'd never used a zapper before, and she'd been on the best parasite remedies for about 6 months without any effect. So when she started crapping out these worms, she kept them. And I told her, I'm going to make you famous with this photo, but I won't take you fishing anymore. But I forgot her last name. I don't know what it is now. So.
What about the ionization factor? Like, just what's because the voltage is the amplitude, right? The voltage is the amplitude. You're dealing with a square wave form, and then the frequency is the pulses per second. So maybe we can talk about that and how that affects a virus or a bacteria.
Like that's what this fella asked in the first place. So. What Holder Clark used to tell about, but she doesn't anymore, is that the zapper works because the square wave pulses electric current onto the skin, and the skin acts as a capacitor. That means it keeps a little bit of the current, and then it bleeds some of the current through. It's been measured that by the time the current gets into your body through the skin, it's 5 millionths of an amp. 5 millionths of an amp. By the time it gets on the skin, it's 5,000ths of an amp through this circuit. And it's 5 volts by the time the battery gets through there. So that's very little current. You have to put it against your lips to feel it unless you're energy sensitive when the battery's turned on. And so that little tiny bit of current ionizes the entire inside of the body, all the body's fluids. And when you ionize an environment, you make it impossible for pathogenic organisms to live within that environment, and they fall apart. And that's what the picture of the worms demonstrates better than anything I can say. And I'm glad my wife's here, because the same thing happens in the atmosphere when you ionize the atmosphere. The smog disappears, and that's why there's hardly any smog in Los Angeles. That's why that smoke from the fires is staying compact and blowing downwind instead of spreading out like it used to. And that's because there's thousands and thousands of little orgonite devices around Los Angeles. And that happened 5 years ago, mostly one guy, Don Bradley. And Andy Schwarm, who's filming this, had been selling cloudbusters to people since 7 years ago. There's a whole bunch of those around here too. This is all Wilhelm Reich's technology. It's based on his technology. And my wife is psychic energy sensitive, and she made it possible for us to do this together. So maybe she'd explain how the orgonite works. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and did I answer your question? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you.
Oh, is there anything else that I didn't cover?
Well, I'm curious to know how the viruses or the bacteria are blown apart, or how they actually damaged by this square wave.
I get it. Well, in my understanding, it's not the frequency that's doing the work, it's the ionization process. Once you introduce electric current into any part of the body, it distributes throughout the body and creates a negative charge static field. All pathogenic organisms create and maintain a positive charge static field, which means there's a deficit of ions. And when you introduce ions, it causes their skin to disintegrate and they fall out of colloidal suspension. Smog is a colloidal suspension of toxic particles in a positive charge static field. So when you introduce ions, like after a lightning storm, all the smog disappears for a while because you've introduced ions to the atmosphere, and it reverses the charge of those toxic particles, and they can't repel each other anymore, and so they fall out of the sky. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right, sure.
And I'll say something about Occam's razor, which is a popular notion that scientists should always look for the simplest possible explanation. What you'll find in electromedicine is that most of the scientists that talk about it will look for the most complicated explanation, and they'll religiously stick to it and ignore every rational consideration. So Occam's razor becomes like a threatening weapon to them. And And for a person that wants to know the truth or wants to be empowered by simple truths, it's good to ignore academia sometimes. And I guarantee you, the real scientists who work for corporate and for the CIA, they ignore academia. And they're getting results. Not very nice ones, but, you know, that's real science.
So what about the organite? Let's talk
Okay.
about that. You want to talk about that, Carol?
Here's the genius.
The orgonite in the zapper, the main reason we put the orgonite in there is because it absorbs any kind of negative or disharmonious energy in the body so that the body can heal. It's mainly helps the body heal on a cellular level because everything else kind of melts away. So it just makes it that much easier. And the magnet is wrapped around, or it's inside of a Mobius coil, which creates chaotic energy. The Mobius coil does, but we've put a perimeter wire around there and what that does is it contains that chaotic energy, and the neodymium magnet in there forces that energy into the body. So that's why when people put the zapper on, the first thing they notice is that they feel energized, they feel an up. Well, it's because of the subtle energy devices that are instilled into the zapper. That's what helps, and those are mainly to help the body heal. The circuit and the voltage that goes into the body kills all the parasites and you know, viruses and bacteria that's in the body. But all the subtle energy devices inside there help the body to heal after that's done. So it feels really good. You know, it not only, you know, heals the body, but it just feels really good.
That's okay. We got some questions out there. Let's go. Someone who's not asked a question this whole weekend. Somebody brand new. Okay, you.
Yeah, could you maybe speak about the genesis of orgone technology and maybe what turned you into or tuned you into Wilhelm Reich in the first place?
Oh, thanks a lot. He asked about how did orgone technology get started and what got me into it, or us into it, really. Well, Wilhelm Reich was the first scientist to quantify this ether and to do experimental work with it and to produce results. And he started that in 1935 after his mentor, Sigmund Freud, blackballed him from the psychiatric community. And the reason Freud did that was because Wilhelm Reich kept healing people who had mental illness. And the way he did that, he was convince them to start having sex with their mates again. They'd stop being angry, stop being depressed, and they quit coming back to the psychiatrist. And that infuriated Freud. So he couldn't practice medicine in Europe, so he became a biologist. And he couldn't do anything in Austria or Germany because he was hated so much by all the shrinks there. So he went to Denmark, started his biology experiments, and I'll keep it kind of short, but he heated up some beach sand to incandescence because he had a feeling that life generated itself from nothing. He just had a feeling about that. He wanted to prove it. So he took some beach sand from the beach in Denmark, heated up red hot, put it in a sealed container so there was no outside contaminants, and let it cool. And when it was cool, he put some of the sand under a microscope, and it was teeming with life, with microorganisms. Now, Chad had mentioned pleomorphosis last night, and I so much wanted to comment on some of these great things our guys were saying, but Royal Raymond Rife invented a microscope that could see viruses. It was better than the electron microscope. It was suppressed by the government. He was blackballed, but he produced a huge amount of work. So a lot of frequency discussion that electromedicine people use is from him, mostly plagiarized. And his stuff is the real stuff. If you go to him, you're going to really see some cool stuff. But he filmed viruses changing into bacteria and vice versa, fungi. And each one of these organisms, with his microscope, it showed the energy field around it. It was a blue orgone field. He didn't call it that. A lot of people who research this call it by different names, and it's confusing. And Reich was the first one, so I think he can be excused. But it's prana, chi, life force, animal magnetism. These are all the same thing. It's the ether. Tesla called it ether. It's pre-existent. It's before matter energy. It's the foundation of everything else. So when you work with that, you're getting to the root. You know, you can make some things happen. And there's no end to what you can do, and this is what's been done. So And as to Sacred Steve's comment about a parasite turning into a helpful organism, I don't know, maybe that happens. It's intriguing. And I'd love to see some evidence of that. That would be very encouraging. Anyway, so I studied Reich's work. Because I did a lot of reading at one point. I got a box of books from somebody. So I got a book by Serge Kahili King called Earth Energies. And it told how to make orgone accumulators with layers of saran wrap and aluminum foil. And so I started doing this, and I made all kinds of configurations. I worked with people who were psychic or dowsers, and they would tell me how to make these things to help them do better work. And that's how I met Carol. I took her a orgone accumulator cube in exchange for a psychic reading when I first met her. Was it the zapper or the orgone accumulator?
It was a zapper.
Okay, well, the second reading. And she said, wow, everything looks clear. I can focus better. I can see more stuff. Everything's brighter. And that's the effect of orgone. Because orgone is the radionics, magic, everything works through orgone. And so does radio, by the way. And Tesla knew that. It's not about anything but orgone, ether. And so I could do all kinds of things. I built one I could lay down in, and it was just amazing. You know, like a big coffin. It was wonderful. Yeah, I was working outside a lot. I was a sign painter in those days. So in the winter, I'd get hypothermia. I laid down this thing in 10 minutes, I was sweating. When I was sweating, I was hot from the inside out, like a microwave oven or something, but it's entirely harmless. Okay, in 1998, one of my Zapper customers emailed me, and he was pretty mad because he sent Carl Weltz $500 for a little block of material that was only made of resin and metal particles. He was furious, you know? He wanted his money back. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. I want to try that. So I made some molds, and I had my daughter was psychic. She was living with me at the time. And I asked her to look at the energy and tell me what she saw. And she saw this huge, blasted out field of blue energy from this thing, much bigger than an orgone accumulator. And so I thought, well, what if I put a crystal in here? So I put a crystal in another one, and she saw the energy shooting out the crystal. And when I pointed it at things, it would affect whatever I pointed it at. And so that was another seminal discovery. And when Carol and I got together, we started experimenting on the environment. And she can talk about that better than I can. Tell her about her early gifting with the fairies. Well, she gets in party mode. She talks a lot, but she's a general. But my wife sees elementals. She talks to them. She reads. She's telepathic. She can get out of her body, go in the past or future. She's one of the really good psychics that's very humble, and it's one of the things that attract me to her. The arrogant ones, I can't really, don't have much use for, but there are a few like her, and through the internet we're finding more. And when you get some humble psychics together who will work together, there's an awful lot you can do to make the world better. So these discoveries are so huge, and all of us that do this, there are thousands of us that do this stuff. None of us have an inkling of how big this is, you may have seen the sylphs in the sky yesterday over the forest fire, okay? Sylphs haven't been seen since before radio, since about the time when radio was invented, early 1900s.
What are sylphs?
All right. Sylphs they're cloud forms that look like angels.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife said, those are angels. I thought, maybe.
Let me add something. There were, here years ago, you guys remember, the skies were totally whited out, and there, everybody was so down. Now there's beautiful blue skies, and we've got the puffy clouds back, and the frequency has risen, because people are taking charge of their lives and changing their diets and changing the way they live and living more of a natural life. And that's how it goes right along with this organized stuff, with us gifting it and everything. We've changed the total frequency of the planet, and the angels are able to show themselves again. You see these huge clouds with these big spread out wings, you know, and you think, you rub your eyes and you're looking at that and you go, man, that looks just like an angel's wing, you know, and you know what, it is. It's their way of showing us that they are back, that they're here to help us, you know, and it's just phenomenal and overwhelming, you know, and it's hard for us to believe, you know, that we're actually seeing what we're seeing, but believe me, you are seeing what you're seeing, that the angels are here to help us, and they're making their presence known, and this is a time of change. And it's just phenomenal, and it's just such an honor to be here at this time. And everybody says, well, this is the, you know, this is the end times, you know, we're coming up to the apocalypse, and I just want to take them and shake them, you know, and say, hey, you guys, what makes you think that this is the end times? This is just the beginning. You know, this is where everything starts.
Thank you guys very, very much for being here. It's just a tremendous honor and all the products that you've created over the years. Thank you very, very much. It's a big round of applause for Don and Carol Croft. Lovely work with them. We have
Oh, it was a cute little plane, wasn't it? That was a nice landing, Don. Wish I could say the same about your last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, from down there. Okay. Don and Carol are here to help us gift this big mess, so here we go. What do you got to gift there, Don? What do you got? Let's see that pyramid. There you go. This and then cover it up.
Here's what we're gonna do. Here's how Carol taught me how to do this. Because my dowsing was never very consistent, especially when it was for personal things. When you're dowsing for towers, things like that, it's not personal. You're just looking for information. You don't have a vested interest in the answers, so you usually get better results. But here's what happened. Now, when I was dowsing without the pendulum, without the sucker punch, I asked Carol to watch my energy. I'm going to watch my energy now. So ask me a question.
No, you ask a question.
Okay, I'll ask a question. Am I a dork? No, that's too general. It's my name, Don Croft. So, okay, I got a yes. Now I'm going to ask Carol to watch the energy, see where this energy is coming from to get the answer. And if people watching it are psychics, they'll probably see the same thing. Because that carries through with digital film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where's the energy coming
From up above your head.
Now where's it going?
To the top of your head.
Okay.
Down your arm.
Okay, and then out to the muscles
Mhm.
that control the temp. Okay. Does it go to the pendulum?
No.
Okay, interesting. Okay, now.
Well, actually it does, because it's surrounding
Oh, okay.
this part of your arm, your
Okay.
hand. But sometimes
Oh.
with people too, I've seen it come down through the crown of the head to the heart
Uh-huh.
and out this way.
Interesting.
And
But
that's
not happening right now.
That's someone who is well trained.
Okay, got it. So the heart is kind of cleans the information up.
Right.
Got it. So,
So to do it right, you should bring it here and then bring it down.
Well, let me see if I can bring it there. Okay. Emily Dawn Croft. Okay, I've got a big nice yesterday. Focusing my heart. You seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so it makes a difference what this is made of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's because you interact with
Actually, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, it's anything with a weight. You can use anything.
Oh, anything. I used to say use a bullet.
Yeah, you can
Just-
use anything.
Why is that? But okay.
But,
Okay, now. This is one of Andy's power ones.
Andy Schwarm.
Gorgeous, yeah.
You gotta say who it is.
Oh, Andy Schwarm of ctbusters.com, who's filming it.
There you go.
And this has a point of a sucker punch is basically a very minimal device. It has a Mobius coil around a crystal, and it's powered by an off and on circuit. We use 15 cycles a second approximately. And so this is the point. A sucker punch isn't as complicated as this, obviously. This has a lot of other stuff in it, but it operates, in this case, like a sucker punch. So I'm putting my palm over the point. This thing is turned on. Okay, now I'm going to ask a question and have Carol watch the energy dynamics and describe it. Okay. So, am I a sissy girl? Okay, good to know on that. Okay, so where's the energy point?
It's interesting. It's coming down through here, going down both arms,
Where's it coming in?
through your head.
Oh, okay. Only that's a more serious question. Did we disable those 4 mountaintop arrays today?
Okay, this is now it's coming through here, around and through this.
Okay.
So it's bypassing your head, is what it's doing.
Okay. Now, is it involving my heart?
No.
Okay. And here's the thing: you can get a good answer without worrying about whether the heart's having an input, right?
You can, yeah.
This way.
Yeah.
But it's more difficult to get a good answer when
This,
you're not.
this takes out the your personal stuff.
This takes your brain out of the loop,
Yeah.
right? And the brain is full of filters and prejudices and desires. Okay, thanks, honey. Let's see, what else should we answer? Well, let's talk more about dolphins, because a lot of people are having dreams. These are people who never even see the ocean, but they're getting very specific dreams in which dolphins show up, or visions. Andy's had dolphin visions. He's going to the state, for instance. They show up, and that always means something, but it's not necessarily a verbal communication, right? So, what can you say about that?
Well, Pete, you have to. People are becoming aware in mass proportions right now, and I think that has to do with what the dolphins are. But the dolphins come to you when you reach a certain stage. That's what I've seen more often than not. But that doesn't always. It's not always that way. They come to other people too, and they relate to you through your emotions.